The school sat at the end of Weller Street in a part of town nobody had named anything hopeful. Flat roof, chain link on 3 sides, a hand-painted sign. Above the entrance that read Pelham Hollow Primary, in blue letters someone had touched up, at least twice over the years. A sandbox in the corner of the yard held a plastic digger and a bucket with a cracked handle. Everything about the building said ordinary. Everything about it was designed to. I had been looking for her for 4 months. Not 4 months of idle searching, 4 months of driving routes, checking enrollment records under half a dozen names, following a thread of small details that only added up if you already knew what you were looking. Small things. She had hidden well, and I understood why, and I had still come. The Vathi court dissolved our bond when she was 27. That is how they say it in their language. Dissolved like a salt in water, as though what was between us had been a temporary solution all along. Their consul delivered the edict in person, which I now understand was a courtesy. He read 3 paragraphs of Vathi law, then 1 paragraph that was their own addition, and the addition was the part that mattered. It said that the bond had been entered under incomplete information, that her choice had been made without full awareness of the rank asymmetry involved, and that the court had therefore exercised its right of dissolution on her behalf. On her behalf, as though she hadn't known what I was, as though knowing hadn't been the whole point. She was in the room when he read it. She didn't look at me. Jaw was set in the way that meant she had already decided she would not break in front of them, and she didn't. I didn't either, because there was nothing I could have done in that room that would have helped her. The consul finished reading, handed me a folded document, and left. Liren stood at the window for a long time after, looking at something I couldn't see. Then she said quietly that she was sorry. I told her she had nothing to apologize for. She shook her head once, like she didn't believe me. The Vathi court exiled her 6 months after the dissolution. I learned this from a fragment of a public record, years later. The formal reason was conduct unbefitting her station. The real reason, as best I ever understood it, was that she had refused to rebond with anyone they chose for her, and the court had decided that a queen who would not perform her function was an inconvenience they could archive. They stripped her of her title, gave her a modest sum, and assigned her a transit visa for open space. She was 28 years old. I had spent the better part of 12 years building things and fixing things, and trying not to think about her face, at that window, and then one evening I found a name in a school district volunteer record. That wasn't quite her name, but was close enough that the back of my neck went cold. A teaching assistant, Pelham Hollow Primary. I had been on a job site 3 counties away. I finished the week's work, packed my truck, and drove. I arrived on a Thursday morning. I parked on the street and sat in the truck for a while. The school day had started. Could hear it. The muffled sound of children's voices, the occasional sharp bell. I got out eventually and walked to the side of the building where the classrooms faced the yard. And I found the window with the light on. She was at the board. She was writing something in large letters, and a row of small children at low desks were watching her write it. And she looked, I don't know, she looked like herself. Older than I remembered, but not in a way that had diminished anything. Her hair was down and shorter than it had been, and she was wearing a plain gray pullover that told you nothing about her, and she was pointing at what she had written and asking the children a question I couldn't hear through the glass. Her back was to me. I waited. When she turned to look at the children's answers, she was smiling at something one of them said. It was a real smile, not performed. And then, still with her eyes on the class, she turned slightly to glance toward the window. The way people do sometimes, following no particular reason, and she saw me. The smile left her face. She went very still. The children were still talking among themselves. And she had not moved. And I saw her take a breath that didn't quite complete itself. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she looked back at the class and said something, and whatever she said made them quiet down and open a workbook, and she walked to the classroom door. I met her in the corridor outside. She stood 2 feet from me and looked at my face the way you look at something you thought you had finished grieving, and finding it in front of you again changes the math. Her eyes, those pale silver gray eyes that I had spent 12 years trying to forget, doing something complicated. moving between recognition and something I can only describe as dread. Not dread of me, dread of what it meant that I was standing here. That 12 years of careful quiet could be ending in a school corridor on a Thursday morning. Cal, she said. Just my name. The way she said it, very low, very level, like she was making sure she had the right word for the right thing. Loren, I said. She exhaled through her nose. She looked away for a moment at the wall, gathering herself. When she looked back, her expression had steadied. But her eyes were bright in the way that precedes something. You shouldn't be here, she said. The edict covers. The edict covered the bond, I said. It didn't cover me walking down a street. She looked at me for a moment. That is a very narrow reading. I had 12 years to work on it. Something shifted in her face at that, not quite a smile. The territory adjacent to one, complicated by other things still moving through it. How did you find me, she asked. You kept your initials, she asked. She closed her eyes briefly. I needed something. I know. I had thought about what I would say when I found her. I had rehearsed several versions, in the truck, on job sites, in whatever rented room I was in at the time. All of them sounded in the rehearsal, arguments, like I was making a case. I had thrown them all out before I parked on Weller Street, because what I wanted to say wasn't an argument, and she wasn't someone I needed to argue with. She was someone who had been told, by the people who held authority over her, that her own judgment had been a mistake, that her choice had been uninformed, that she had needed correcting. I said, they were wrong about you. Everything they told you about what you were worth, and what you deserved, and what a proper choice looked like. They were wrong. And I know that doesn't undo 12 years. And I'm not here to tell you what to do about any of it. I'm here because I didn't want you to go the rest of your life thinking I believed what they said. Corridor was quiet, except for the low sound of the class behind her door. Liren looked at me. The brightness in her eyes had become something definite now, and she was working, visibly, to hold her expression together. She pressed her lips into a line and looked at the ceiling for a moment, and then looked back at me. I was the one who went to the window, she said. Her voice was quieter now. When the consul finished reading, I was the one who stood at the window because I could not look at you. Because I agreed with him. Because I could not bear to watch you understand that there was nothing you could do. I know, I said. I have thought about that moment, she said. More than I have thought about most things. So have I. She looked at me. Something that had been tight in her face for a very long time began very slowly to release. I have a class, she said. Until 2 o'clock. I'll be here. She held my gaze for another moment. Then she said simply, all right. She went back inside. I sat in the corridor on a low bench meant for small children and waited. And at 2 o'clock the door opened and a stream of small voices went past me. And then she came out with her bag and her coat. And we walked out of Pelham Hollow Primary, together, into the thin afternoon light of a Thursday, and she did not look back. I had a truck on Weller Street and no particular plan beyond finding her. She had a bag with her things in it, and 12 years of accumulated quiet that she had worn like a second skin. Between us at that moment, that was enough. We walked. She didn't ask where I was parked. She just walked beside me, and after a little while her hand found my arm, not reaching, not gripping, just resting there. The way you put your hand on something solid that you thought was gone. She was going home. It had just taken both of us a while to find the way back.